You're looking at a vintage album cover from Another Side of Bob Dylan. I finally get to start reviewing songs from this album, now that we're done with The Times They Are Changin'. This one supposedly is signed by Dylan himself, see that there? Consider me skeptical though, because they're selling this website is selling this for $156. Anyway, the album came out in August of 1964. And the title was a very purposeful shot across the bow, like a wake-up call. Hey, this is not The Times They Are Changin' Part 2. This is not the young troubadour of our times, voice of a generation in the making from the last two albums of original material, that is. No, the creative team here is clearly saying, Columbia's saying to the audiences, this is going to be something different. And this was kind of a gutsy move if you think about it. I mean, Dylan had really found something that was working and that resonated. And just as he's getting adulation and a very bright spotlight, a spotlight that he craved, he moves completely away from topical material. Bob Dylan is nothing if not a contrarian, and his future contrarian turns are much more famous, like when, just a year from quote-unquote now, he went electric, of course, at the Newport Festival. And that, of course, pissed off a lot of people, but nowhere near as much as later when he went into his Christian phase and would actually, preach from the stage, often to the accompaniment of jeers from the crowd, his own crowd. So Another Side of Bob Dylan, its release was really the first of these moves. And it came about right in the middle of the 60s, late 64. So there was still a lot going on. 2 months before the album came out, these three civil rights workers in the South went missing. A month before, LBJ signs the Civil Rights Act into law. And the month the album came out, the Vietnam War, from a U.S. perspective, starts rearing its ugly head with the Gulf of Tonkin incident. So it must have been a little jarring for people who are now on board with him to check out this album. Arguably half the songs are relationship songs. There's only one that would have fit on The Times They Are Changin', and it's far more abstract than the topical songs from that album. So anyway, what's the first song they hear on this album? Well, the one we're going to talk about today, All I Really Want to Do. The song was inspired by the ending of his relationship with Suze Rodolo, who we talked about before. And that's the ending of Dylan's first serious relationship, and the first one he made when he came to New York. I mean, this big event in his life, but it's a really just light, funny song. It only has 227 words, 6 stanzas of 6 lines each. It's barely over 4 minutes long. It's also not a song of penetrating insight. Dylan wrote multiple songs throughout his career about a relationship that's on the skids, including as a very young man, like on the Free Will and Bob Dylan, that are easily some of the best of all time. This is not one of those. This is just it's almost like a throwaway song, but an enjoyable one. The song is interesting in a way for Bob Dylan's catalog because it's not great in the way that so many Bob Dylan songs are great. It's great in the much more standard jukebox, top 40 radio, I'm trying to make a hit song way. And we have proof of that because both Cher and the Byrds had pretty big hits by covering this song. They were both hits on the radio at the same time, so that's how, appealing in that kind of commercial way the song is. Thankfully, Dylan, of course, throughout his career chose to use his enormous talents to make more serious material, but it's kind of an interesting glimpse, so many bands and artists and songwriters, again, looking for a hit. I'm trying to come up with something that was catchy and people can't stop singing and will buy a lot of copies of. And this song then is a little bit of a glimpse of what Dylan as a songwriter or singer-songwriter could have been if he had wanted to focus on that. How many pop radio smash singles would he have written? Anyway, let's get to the song itself, and I have to say, it's almost refreshing to take on something that's so unchallenging. I usually have to put a ton of work into these videos. This one, not so much, but that doesn't mean the song isn't worth enjoying and thinking about. So here's what Dylan does from a songwriting perspective. This is assembly line work, very un-Dylan. So every stanza starts with what Dylan doesn't want, or something that he doesn't want, and ends with what he does. And what he does is always the exact same thing, the same couplet. All I really want to do is baby be friends with you. And part of what makes the song so catchy and memorable is that each first line has a keyword whose sound he then uses multiple times in the next line. Then in the rest of the lines before getting to the refrain, what amounts to a refrain here, the couplet about all I really want to do, then he takes another sound or sounds and uses them repeatedly. First stanza, first line, I ain't looking to compete with you. Compete is the key word. Second line, beat or cheat or mistreat you. So that eat sound is used 3 different times in the very next line. And then he breaks away like we talked about, because after that, simplify you, classify you, deny, defy, or crucify you. That has nothing to do with what just came before. That's that turn of direction that happens every time. Instead of the 4 versions of the eat sound that we had in the last 2 lines, we get, well, let's count them up, simplify, classify, deny, defy, crucify. 5 versions of that sound. The I, meaning the letter Y, but that sound. And look how short these lines are. Dylan's ability to pack in rhyming sounds is second to none. But that's really it. That's the template. Just gets repeated over and over again. Next stanza. No, I ain't looking to fight with you. Fight is the key word. Fight. Frighten you or tighten you. So fight, frighten, and tighten. Drag you down or drain you down, chain you down or bring you down. Next one, I'm really just going to do one more because like I said, it's the same thing again and again. I ain't looking to block you up. So block, shock, knock, lock. That's in the first 2 lines. The next 2 lines, the next couplet, analyze you, categorize you, finalize you, or advertise you. I'll stop showing the lyrics now. So that mechanism there, that's actually much more important than the rhyme scheme itself. You want proof that the rhyme scheme is unimportant? Here are the ending words of the first stanza in order. You, do, you. He's not exactly going out of his way, is he? So uncharacteristically lazy, but, he knew what he was doing and it serves the song. The whole thing's about, I don't want to do this to you, that to you. I do want to do this. He purposefully overuses that word in this song. That word shows up 41 times in a 227-word song, so almost 1 out of every 5 words in this song is YOU. Would I normally consider that inexcusable from a songwriting standpoint? Absolutely. But again, Dylan was, consciously or not, playing in this very radio-friendly, repetitive space. At the end of the song, you do get, I think, a great synopsis of the trouble with relationships. I ain't looking for you to feel like me, see like me, or be like me. And that's right before the final instance of all I really want to do is baby be friends with you. There's some discussion about whether or not the song is progressive or sexist, so that's funny. If you take them at their face value, then they're more on the progressive side, like, hey, you're fully empowered, his girlfriend, ex-girlfriend, whatever, I want you to be your own person, etc., etc. But when you listen to the song, Dylan is clearly having fun here, and I think it's a little tongue-in-cheek. I mean, the song is really a backhanded compliment when you think about it, because if you're saying, hey, all I want to do is be friends with someone that you were in a romantic relationship with, well, then that's person A dumping person B. But I don't think that makes it sexist, the song. More like a little insulting, meaning like, well, hey, don't insult my intelligence. You just want to move on to the next girl, which is what Dylan did. And to close out, what's most interesting to me about the song is not the biographical part at all, but the glimpse into Dylan as, like I said, like a commercially oriented songwriter, even if that wasn't what he was consciously thinking of when he crafted this song. It's kind of a masterclass in that assembly line, catchy, earworm-making style. That is something Dylan could do and do well, and this is not the only time that we see that. And when he does hit on something like this, it seems like he likes it. He'll come back to songs like this, or especially Most Likely You Go Your Way, I'll Go Mine. Interesting that he seems to have a fondness for this kind of a material for someone who has so many serious songs. Remember, his original musical idol was Little Richard. When he was a kid in the 50s, he was listening to the radio and the catchy hits of the day just like everybody else. And thanks for watching.